These 3,000 flags stand proudly on the lawn of the Buffalo American Red Cross on Delaware Avenue to honor the lives that were lost that day 13 years ago. Right now, we are joined on the couch by Peggy McGee-Smith to learn more about what it was like in New York City 13 years ago today. Peggy, you are an American Red Cross volunteer, and you walk us through that morning 13 years ago.
Well, actually, first, like many people, I saw it on television. I was watching TV and immediately reported to the Red Cross chapter. And when we began to realize the magnitude of the disaster, I was told to rent a car and to go to New York and to meet up with other volunteers at a particular chapter, which I did.
And you got one of the last cars available.
I did. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that all the flights had been grounded, so people were scrambling for cars. So there were a lot of people behind me. And had I known it, I think I would have taken a few with me. But
you were all by yourself?
Yeah, I was by myself, and I drove down, and there wasn't really much traffic on the road. What I do remember was that there were a lot of ambulances going to New York. It was very sad. And of course, the radio was very sad as well. A lot of music, you know, patriotic music, or just talking about the event. People were so stunned. And I don't think I even understood the magnitude of it.
While it was happening.
Exactly. I had never experienced anything like that. So it wasn't until I had been there for maybe 2-3 days that I really understood.
And how long did you stay?
I was there for probably close to 3 weeks, and then came home and went back then in November after that. But I have to say, I never worked so hard in my life. We worked easy 12-hour days. And the people in New York were so kind and gracious to us. The cab drivers would line up outside the armory where we worked, and would just take us to our hotel. They didn't charge us. They just took us freely. Cooks, chefs would come in from restaurants and bring food, you know, to the armory. And the armory was the site where people were coming and filling out paperwork. At that time, there was still some hope that people were lost. So they were filling out paperwork for individuals who, you know, they thought missing. Unfortunately, that was not the case. Most of those people had perished.
And you are a mental health services volunteer for the
Correct.
Red Cross. What does that mean, and what are your duties when you go to a disaster zone like this?
Well, what it means is that we have some training in mental health. Either, you know, we're licensed professional mental health providers, and when we join the Red Cross, we're then given the Red Cross training for what activities we can do when on a disaster. We operate within a framework of doing certain things. We don't do long-term mental health. We go in, we provide immediate care. If someone may need more assistance, we're going to refer them to health providers in the community. And that's, you know.
And you just returned recently to New York City. We saw a little bit about the museum and that piece that leading up to this interview. You were there on the day that it was dedicated in May.
Yes, yes. I was very fortunate to be a part of the group that was present during the dedication. And it was very moving. It was almost a little, I wasn't quite sure how I was going to handle going into the museum. It was so powerful. And the way it's done, it's beautifully done. So anyway, the dedication was very moving, very touching. Then we remained for the week after, and that week that the museum was open was only for families of victims, first responders, people who lived in the lower Manhattan area, people who were directly affected by the disaster. So we stayed at the museum. We had a large staff of Red Cross volunteers, both local, and then there were 12 people from throughout the state that went as well. And we provided emotional support to a lot of the visitors. It was a very powerful week.
What a full circle moment that you went the day that it happened to do that, and then 13 years later you're still there with the
I was
families
very
of the
honored
victims.
to be a part of that.
Well, great work.
Yes,
thank you
well,
so
thank
much
you.
for coming in to share your story. Of
Thank
course,
you.
so many people whose lives were changed forever would want to go to that museum, but why do you think that people should just bring their families even if they weren't directly impacted by these attacks?
Well, it is exactly what they say, a museum. And I think it helps to explain to, certainly there are many people now, it's 13 years, since it occurred, there are many people that don't know, didn't experience it firsthand or were quite young when it happened. So you go to a museum to kind of understand your history. And that's, I think, very important. It has changed our lives dramatically. I mean, we know that when we travel, things are very different. We have to be more secure. I think young people see a lot of things on television. It probably would broaden their understanding of the impact of this disaster.
To pay a visit. All right.
Yes, absolutely. And it is very moving, beautiful, beautiful memorial to the victims.
All right. Well, so were your memories that you shared with us this morning. Again, thank you so much for being here on this anniversary. We appreciate it, Peggy. We're gonna